Hey Garth, how's it going?
Jason, it's so good. So good. How are you?
Okay, this is about to get personal for a minute. Garth,
Oh, okay.
you're at your son's graduation weekend.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. Cooper has graduated from Trinity College School. I'm wearing the shirt. I'm wearing the shirt to represent. Yeah.
It's a moment, Garth. Thanks for jumping on the
Yeah.
podcast in the middle
Yeah.
of graduation festivities. It means a lot to me.
You're welcome.
Okay, here. I got a question for you today, though, Garth. You've spent 3 days celebrating this thing.
Yeah.
Where is one place that AI played a role in the graduation?
Where's one place that generative AI played the role in your graduation? I don't think it played a direct role in any of it. It was incredibly well done. It was really personal. But I would say the place where it may have played a role is in my head,
Mm,
listening to some speeches
mm,
that and some speeches were great. I mean, the head of school there, Stuart, he is an excellent wordsmith. He spoke very well, and there's a lot of trust there. His authorship was clear. There were some other speeches that you're they were a bit broad, you know, but that was only in my head, and it was only in my head for a small percentage of the time. But it's a good point, Jason. I don't think generative AI was involved in any of it.
okay. So we are talking about a book and an author today that's I Literate. Kate Arthur is the author. It's a memoir, and the
Yeah.
subtitle is Redefining Literacy in an Age of Artificial Intelligence. And I think what we're talking about here is literacy is life, isn't it? And we're talking about how do we redefine life in an age
Mm.
of generative artificial intelligence, and what does it do to our system structures, to our lives, to our events, to our narratives, to our stories? And what follows is a couple podcasts of deep exploration around AI
Yeah.
and life, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, I would go one step further and say, literacy is life, and life is our stories.
Yeah.
And this author, Kate Arthur, is incredibly active in this space, up into government and intergovernmental agencies, G7 and whatnot, to help us understand and protect these stories as we move forward with generative AI, as it sort of eats up all of our civilization, all of our understandings, what stories are being lost and how do we preserve those ones. So yeah, it's an excellent book, and really look forward to this conversation.
Yeah. So this conversation starts with, believe it or not, a little chat around mental health, and it ends
Yeah,
with conversations about what are the paths we can take as we explore generative AI in our schools, and
yeah.
almost everything else in between. I hope our listeners love this show.
I don't doubt that they will, Jason. Let's get to it.
All
Enjoy.
right, let's get in.
Lassoing leadership, sharp and true. Beard's Book Club got wisdom for you. Turn the pages, let the stories flow. Unpacking lessons as we grow.
Hello, welcome back to Lassoing Leadership. I'm Jason Rogers, one of your hosts for this show. As you know, if you've been listening, we're into season 3, which is Beard's Book Club. And Beard's Book Club, we are taking time to read a few books this year, meet the
Just a
authors, and
few,
meet somebody
Jason.
closer, just a
Just
few,
a few.
and then talk about them in the context of education leadership, particularly leading in a kinder, more compassionate way. After all, we're doing the Lassoing Leadership podcast. Garth, it's good to see you. Thanks for being here again and always.
Yeah, it's great. It is great to be back, and I'm excited for the next couple weeks that we have together with Kate Arthur, author of Am I Literate?
Yeah.
And this book, I think the timing of this book, or the timing of our conversations, is really important because, and hopefully we've got a bunch of school leaders who are going to tune in, because this is a really great intersection. It's not just about artificial intelligence in education. It's not just about artificial intelligence and literacy writ large. It's actually about an intersection of generative AI literacy and mental health, which is
Mhm.
a really important conversation that is happening, but it's not at really the forefront right now. But Jason, why don't you tell us how you came into contact with Kate's work?
Yeah, curiously enough, I was at the mental health summit here in Banff last month, and first of all, what a conference, an opportunity to come together with hundreds of school leaders from across our systems, independent, public, otherwise, and talk about mental health for a focused period of time. And part of that conference was mental health in leadership. And so I was asked to come out and sit on a panel with superintendents from across districts, across Canada, coast to coast, and talk about what we're doing with mental health in leadership in our schools. And so that's kind of how it started, was on that panel. Actually, she wasn't on the panel, but she was
Yeah.
keynote right after that panel.
And then you had an opportunity to meet with her and talk about the intersection of generative AI and mental health.
Yeah, I mean, we on the panel, I presented, I called it the 4 M's of mental health for school leaders, and I talked about making mental health a priority in our schools. The fact that employees, we talked about this in the past, have to matter. So making it a priority, making mattering at the core of it. As leaders, we need to model mental health as well. I think people do look to the leader for not only vision, but also all aspects of what does your work life look like. And then from an organizational standpoint, I think we need to compel everybody who's there, and that's from the leader everywhere, is meet me halfway, or meet us halfway as an organization. Having ownership for your own mental health is a pretty important part of this. So I had the opportunity to present like the 4 M's: making it a priority, mattering, modeling, and meeting us halfway. And then after that, I went off to Kate's keynote, where she, really leaned into what is AI, literacy, narrative, our own personal narrative, our own memoirs have to do with mental health in our organizations.
Well, that is, thanks, Jason. 4 M's, like 2 minutes of just like mental health 101 there. I love it. And I love that you're saying, meet us halfway. Like, you take ownership over your mental health as well. And what I really like about all of this too is that you couch it in modeling as a leadership. So what are some things that you do, Jason, when you're modeling mental health?
Well, I think we've talked about it in the past, but I think the positive psychology would tell us that things like acts of gratitude are actually really impactful for other people, but really impactful for the person who does them. And so I do practice gratitude every
Yeah.
single day of my work. And what I've started doing, Garth, is not just doing a gratitude card, but affixing a second blank card to it. I don't
Oh,
know
and
what happens to
pass
the
it
second.
along.
I don't know what happens to second blank card. I don't tell anybody. I don't make it prescriptive. It's just a subtle nudge to say, "Hey, have a look around. There are
Yeah.
other people who are doing incredible things that you might see that I don't see, and so
Yeah.
let them know in that kind of way." That I think we've heard Zach Mercurio or
Yeah.
Jennifer Wallace talk about how to do gratitude properly, make it specific, make it timely, make it personal. And I think that's really what I'm trying to do, trying to model. And then just the way you show up, to meetings, the way, you're authentic, you're vulnerable. I think those are important pieces as well. So I think that's how I model mental health, mental wellness in the workplace. What
Yeah.
about you,
And
Garth? What do
these,
you,
well,
go ahead.
hang on, because these notes of gratitude that you give, they are not like, they're handwritten, right? They're not
Of
on a
course.
computer,
No.
because you
Yeah.
can't generative AI your way to mattering. And I think
Yes.
that's really significant.
Yes.
In the conversation with Kate that we have next week, I talk a little bit about an article where I was reading this beautiful article in the Golden Mail about aging, getting older. And it is all about trust in the authorship of that. And I think that what you do is you build that trust through these different acts of gratitude that you do. So Jason, help us connect Kate Arthur's work in generative AI and literacy to mental health.
Well, I think you actually connected already for our listeners, Garth. So well done. I love that quote. You can't generative AI to wellness, and I think I think it's totally true. And I think that's the connection to Kate and her work. So she writes this book, Am I Literate? a memoir, Redefining Literacy in the Age of Artificial Intelligence. And she tells this as a memoir would, through narrative and through story. And I think what Kate is first signaling to us is that our stories are very important and
Yes.
they're personal and they need to be held close. And then she does an incredible job of taking that and, putting it against all sorts of things, the industrial revolutions, her
Mhm.
upbringing, AI in the workplace. I mean, all of these things are kind of counterbalanced against the narrative of which she's telling around AI and literacy. And so I think, that human aspect of having a memoir, of having a narrative is hugely important as we try to offset perhaps that AI impact.
Yeah.
As you read through the book, Garth, as we get into the book, where were you seeing AI intersect with call it literacy, or you could talk about AI intersecting with wellness or AI intersecting with a memoir like this?
Yeah. 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 Like one thing that I love about this book is like at a time now when generative AI, um, the companies, the platforms, they're forcing schools to revisit a bunch of things: assessment, authorship, creativity, um, academic integrity, ethics. Some would say like the purpose of learning itself.
Yeah,
I think
big
what
time.
Kate does in this book is she asks a more foundational question: what does it actually mean to be literate now?
Mm-hmm.
And in this way, she defines literacy as an evolving capacity, as an evolving capability, where throughout, and she goes back in time, like throughout, humanity, the concept of literacy, what it means to create, communicate, interpret, make meaning of the world around us has changed, from the pre-printing press into now into the electrification of society. And I think the significant piece here is, um, and one thing that I took from it was that it changes. It's like power changes. So it changes as society decides who to get, like who gets to access knowledge, whose stories are preserved and whose stories are forgotten, whose stories are amplified. And as generative AI platforms like eat our humanity, digest it and spit it back to us, we have to be very careful that AI literacy is not just an add-on, but that we are controlling it. We are controlling the use of it. We're controlling how it is trained. We're controlling how it is regulated as well. That was my big takeaway.
I think Kate is laying the breadcrumbs for us pretty directly to critical thinking, honestly.
Mm,
Like, I think she is relating literacy to critical thought in this day and age of AI, and how important it is going to be that we can not only take in the information, but make appropriate use of it. And I think
yeah.
that is at the core of literacy for her through the generations, honestly. Is like, not only how do we get the information, but what do we do with it? And for me in this day and age, I think about an awful lot is we do have to double down on critical thinking for everybody, for our staff, for our students, for parents and community. I think too often we think, oh no, the students are going to be impacted by AI. They're going to have all those challenges that you put in front of us, Garth. Everything
Mm.
from integrity to ethics to a cognitive offloading, frankly. And we forget about the broader community. We forget about ourselves as well. And I think, by thinking of AI and literacy in this narrative way, in this memoir, I think Kate is saying as well, think about ourselves in this too, in our broader community.
Yeah. And I would go one step further and say, like, schools have always usually been the uh, the curators of knowledge, the producers of knowledge that the next generation is taking in. And that is no longer the case. I mean, we had it with the internet, right? Accessing a wealth of information, but still schools had a certain authority. And I think her big question is, where does the authority lie now? And this matters because schools are built around knowledge. Society is built around knowledge. And if the tools of knowledge production are changing, right, with generative AI, it's producing knowledge. It's synthesizing things together for our students, for ourselves. If that is changing, then schools must change too. And I think that we as leaders need to be aware of that. We need to like take the long view, play the infinite game, what all the other analogies. We've got to step back up to the balcony, not on the dance floor. And I think, we need to create the conditions where, teachers, students, parents, they see it not as a novelty or even a threat, but they see it as part of the long human history of generative AI, as part of those tools that have reshaped what it means to know things. And so I love that long view. Like she's saying, this is where knowledge production has come from. This is where we are now. Where will it be in the future? How can we prepare ourselves? And I would say too, that listeners, you're in for a treat, because Kate, we haven't talked a lot about who she is, but Kate's an unbelievable activist in this space, right? So she has a seat at G7 meetings. She has a seat with our government. She is a powerful activist in terms of really capturing what it means to know right now, and what it means to prepare young students, young adults for learning now and in the future.
And you're totally right, Garth. I mean, and as I'm listening to you talk, I would get excited about the conversation we're going to have with Kate, because I think it's really of the moment. It's time to start thinking like this. And I'm really excited about the wrap up that, you and I have already discussed briefly about, some of the information that's out there around AI in schools. But Garth, let's get right to the brass tacks. I mean, do you think, one, schools are prepared to change quickly enough for what is on the horizon with AI? Is maybe the first question. But the second question is, do we have the opportunity to slow down? Because it feels like you talk about getting to 30,000 feet, and you talk in the long view and playing the infinite game. Is this coming so fast that we have the opportunity to, as leaders, sit back and be a little bit more passive and see it coming and get to 30,000 feet? Or do we need to react right away? What are your first thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, my first thoughts are, of course, I mean, we have to consider ourselves in the driver's seat
Yeah.
here. And I think in order to do that, we have to be lead learners around not just what the platforms can do, but what they are doing to us. And, you captured critical thinking, creative thinking, more important than ever. And there's some of the early sort of research that's coming back in industry is saying that generative AI is creating efficiencies, but the way that it's impacting the people in these doing the work with generative AI is that it's not making them less busy. It's just making them more busy. They're able to do more things. And so we have to, circling back to mental health, we have to make sure that we are allowing our faculty and staff, we're allowing the people that we work with to understand what our priorities are, how we're going to get there, and when we're going to get there, and helping them deploy generative AI in really meaningful and intentional ways to do that. And so I think we have to see ourselves in the driver's seat. We have to see ourselves as the lead learners, role modeling, as you mentioned with mental health, in how we are doing it, to not download hard things, but to help us do the hard things really well. So I know Future Design School talks about, and a bunch of the research talks about, students have more of an opportunity than ever to have a frictionless experience, right? And Stuart Shankar, who wrote an amazing book in 2019, I think it was called Self-Regulation for a Just Society. Stuart Shankar, Canadian. And he expressed even back then that students are more and more self-regulating with machines. So I think that we as schools and educational institutions can put students in the position of experiential education, right? We can put students in the position of like really deep and meaningful mentorship and apprenticeship to help them like access all of these things around mental health, access all of these pieces you mentioned about mattering and gratitude, without the use of downloading and facing and allowing them to face these areas of generative friction and tension, to really know who they are a little bit more, not only as learners, but as like students, as citizens. So I think we have to see ourselves in the driver's seat. What do you think, Jason?
Well, it's so rich. And I think like I'm with you on the self-regulation bit, Garth. And like I think the intersection of self-regulation and critical thinking is probably the safest place to be. as we move into this world of AI. And I think I see three paths people are choosing to take. The first one is, I would just say, like baby out with the bathwater kind of territory, where we're seeing a real swing back to low tech, no tech learning as a response and reaction. I see a lot of people jumping on that bandwagon, or whatever you will call it. I see another path being alpha school style path, where AI is the future. We're going to go all in on it, and superhuman territory, right? Where we're going to push our cognition past any limits that we've seen before. We're going to learn faster, more efficiently. And we're going to use AI to do that in a really responsive, exciting way. And I think there's a middle path. Like, I think there's that middle path where self-regulation and critical thinking are at the intersection. And as citizens, we are staying on top of what AI is capable of. We are certainly spending time exploring it regularly, because we know that it changes month over month. And yet we are still keeping a mind's eye on self-regulation and how do we use this for our own betterment without allowing it to take over everything we're doing. And so that middle path is a hard one to hold when things are moving so quickly, and also you're so afraid. And I think that's where, the first path is, unfortunately, I think it's driven just a little bit out of fear and uncertainty. And I can't blame people on the first path either. It's complicated times.
Yeah. So why don't we do this? Why don't we leave our listeners to our conversation with Kate, right? That's going to be next week, listeners. And it's amazing. And this book, I mean, it provides at the end, it provides a pretty comprehensive toolkit for us to consider. But Jason, in that third path, you mentioned how difficult it is. And it is difficult because this is, a generative AI toolkit. It's another thing, an important thing. It's another thing that we have to integrate into who we are as educators, who we are as a school, in order to prepare students for the future. But I think what Kate offers us is, he doesn't have to be separate from anything. It should actually be integrated. The conversations, the use of generative AI, the use of not using generative AI too, should be in our conversations. And so why don't we do this? Why don't we leave our listeners, as I said, with our conversation with Kate next week? Listeners, pick up this book, please. It's amazing. And then in our wrap up session, let's come back with some concrete examples of how maybe we use it, and what our schools are doing around generative AI. What's our roadmap, so to speak. And then I'll bring in CIS Ontario, Conference of Independent Schools of Ontario, held an unconference back in January, and we've published our findings from that. It's called the Impact Report. And I'll bring that to that conversation too, because it's concrete, it's in the weeds, it's on the ground in terms of what schools are doing. Sound good?
Yeah, man, I cannot wait for that conversation. I can't wait for people to hear Kate next week. And let's keep this conversation going, Garth. That was fun to talk about and think about. We've got lots ahead of us.
I know. This is one of those episodes where, we start with your 4 M's, and we end with how does this impact our schools with generative AI? And I think we have to tie those together really concretely. And Kate will do that. So listeners, thanks so much for tuning in. Next week, we've got an amazing conversation with an unbelievable author, activist, and educator. She has helped kids with coding and with generative AI. So if you haven't seen her book, Kate Arthur, Am I Literate? It's unbelievable memoir. So enjoy.
You got it. And as always, until next time, keep leading and reading the Lasso Way. Garth, this sounds fun. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, tons of fun. Thanks, Jason.
Grab your coffee, grab your seat. It's time to learn, it's time to meet. Garth and Jason setting the tone. Leadership lessons to take back home. Lassoing leadership sharp and true. Beard's Book Club got wisdom for you. Turn the pages, let the stories flow. Unpacking lessons as we grow. Keep leading the lasso, pages, let the stories flow, unpacking lessons as we grow. Keep leading the lasso way, together we'll grow stronger every day. So plug in your headphones and let's start the show with lessons from Ted.